Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Supershow. We had two big days this week. We had the Monday night Memorial Day matches for championships, and we had, of course, yesterday, June 5th, the Supershow Summer Brawl. Let's start off talking about the results from Monday night. 3 championship matches. Before we begin, I just want to say that last week when I reported on this, I was under the impression that they had added the Tornado Tag Championship match to the Monday night matches. That apparently did not happen. I don't know why. Possibly one of the two participants in the match was unavailable Monday night. But there was no Tornado Tag Team Championship Monday night. Instead, Monday night opened with a match for the LFF Tag Team Championships. McPeak Inc., the champions going in, were being challenged by Veterans Show Wrestling. McPeak Inc. is the team of Mac McPeak and Jeff McPeak. Mac McPeak using her own competitor, Mac Attack. Jeff McPeak using the mark Jeff Bravo. Veterans Show Wrestling is the team of Larry Bignell, the Enforcer, and Evie Fresh, Everett Stevens. Everett Stevens was using the Shadow Phoenix. The Enforcer was using Johnny Gargano. This was a match that went to crowd meter 5. In the end, Veterans Show Wrestling walks away with the victory at crowd meter 5. They are the new LFF Tag Team Champions. I will need to mention this, though. There's a little bit of a controversy. At crowd meter 0, Mac plays Smack with a Shovel. This is a generic finish at number 28, where if the finish is stopped, the person playing the finish loses the match via disqualification. Evie Fresh stops the finish. When he plays the stop, he is told at that moment that by playing the stop, he will win the match but not become the champion because the title does not change hands on a disqualification. After searching through his spectacles to see if he can still stop it and not win via disqualification, he decides to take back the stop and allow the finish to hit. This is always one of those gray areas in this game because, technically he made a legal play. When he threw that stop to stop the finish, that was not something that he couldn't do. He just changed his mind after finding out that playing the stop would have a negative outcome for him, an outcome he didn't like. But the ruling was he was allowed to take it back. That ended up helping him out because they walk away the champions, whereas they still would have won the match if he kept the stop, but they would not be the champions. McPeak Inc. would still be the champions. So had to point out that controversial decision there to let Evie Fresh take back the stop and prevent them from not becoming champions. The next match that night, Peppy Pepper, the Underworld champion, was challenged by Vicious Vic Vandal. Vicious Vic Vandal won a big birdcage match. To get the shot, he was using the Duke. The champion was champion with Kaylee Sweet Pea Perry. This match was a stipulation match. As I've reported earlier, John Polverino was given a choice for these Monday night matches. He could defend his championship in a standard singles match. If he did, Peppy Pepper, his faction mate, would have to defend in an unknown stipulation match. Or he could choose to defend his championship in an unknown stipulation match, and Peppy Pepper would get a standard singles match. John Polverino elected to take a standard singles match for himself. Therefore, Peppy Pepper defended against Vicious Vic Vandal in a steel chain match. Off the top of my head, steel chain stipulation. Beginning of the match, each player searches for a steel chain card in their deck, adds it to their hand. When one player buries 2 or more cards, the other player buries 2 cards. When one player draws 2 or more cards, the other player draws 2 cards. In the end, Peppy Pepper emerges victorious. He's still the Underworld Champion. Finally, Memorial Day, Monday night, we have John Polverino, Press 1P, using his own competitor, John Press 1P, defending the LFF World Heavyweight Championship against the J-Train, Joel Hernandez, using Fox Assassin. This is a standard match. The winner here, and still LFF World Heavyweight Champion, John Polverino. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to all of the players for making it and for all the winners for winning. Impact is able to successfully defend both of the championships up for the night, so big night for Impact. That was Monday. Now let's talk about Saturday. Saturday at Highlander Games in Boonton, New Jersey, we have the Supershow Summer Brawl, a creative competitor tournament, 41 players. They had preliminary rounds and then they made a top cut. In the end, the finalists in the tournament were using Sierra Nevada, Candyman Dan, and using CJ Sparra, the Cheetah Ian Chambers. These two squared off in a main event match, and the winner, representing the Dangerous Wool Order, Candyman Dan. This is back-to-back CACs won by the DWO and back-to-back CACs won by Sierra Nevada. Does this mean we will see Sierra Nevada add to the ban list? I don't know. Does this mean Sierra Nevada end up being promoted to the tag team division? We don't know. The SRG boss did come out today, I believe, as I record this, and announced that there will be competitor cards possibly promoted to Tornado Tag Division. They'll talk about that on Talk of the Universe coming up next Wednesday. Could we see Sierra Nevada add to that list? I don't know. I would not be shocked if D2 ends up on that list. They've been talking about him for a while. I think D2 actually gets better as a Tornado Tag just because their gimmick triggers one more time. But we'll see. I will report on that when that happens. Also, in this main tournament, honorable mention, Henry Mulholland, Hank the Tank, makes top 8, going undefeated, using numero uno and no skill cards in his deck. Now, prior to this weekend's tournament, the general manager of the Junior Heavyweight Championship, the big guy, Gary Schneider, announced that the child that did the best at the CAC tournament would become the next contender for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Hank the Tank is only 8 years old, so he's definitely eligible, and because of this top 8 finish, he is now the next in line to challenge for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Those were the results for the main tournament. We also had some other big matches, championship matches, at Highlander Games on June 5th. Let's go through those. I'm going to start off with the LFF Tri-State Championship. Amir Gaynor walks in as the LFF Tri-State Champion using Old Skull and Bones. He's challenged by Joseph Ritchie, the founder of the SRG Super Show discussion group on Facebook, using Rah Rah Perry. This match is played under New York rules, as all LFF Tri-State Championship matches are. In the end, the winner and new champion is Joseph Ritchie. Joseph Ritchie's not out of the hot seat yet because immediately afterwards, Anthony Medvez, the true survivor, the man hosting and running the Supershow Summer Brawl tournament and event, he challenges Joseph Ritchie for the championship. So Joseph Ritchie, not even able to get up after the match with Amir Gainer, immediately takes on Anthony Medvez using his own competitor, True Survivor. The winner here, and still champion, Joseph Ritchie using Rah Perry. So Joseph Ritchie walks in as a challenger and walks out champion with a successful defense under his belt. Congratulations to him. Next up, championship-wise, let's talk about the LFF Triad Championship. The LFF Triad Champion walking in was Matt Barone using Mr. Pop and Twist. The two challengers for the Triad match were determined by the winners of the Thursday and Friday night tournaments. Let's take a moment to talk about those tournaments. Thursday night, we had the Thursday Night Brawl hosted by Brian the Norseman. This was a group stage to a top cut tournament. The first round of the top cut were all triad matches, followed by steel cage matches, with a submission match in the finals. The two finalists in the tournament were, using Viral, the Cannoli, Anthony Perry, and using Johan Sibelius, Paul Trejo. The winner of the Thursday Night Brawl ends up being Paul Trejo. Paul Trejo is able to choose a contender for the Triad Championship. He chooses his fellow faction mate, Jeremy Steigerwald Practicite. So Practicite will be one of the two men challenging Matt Barone for the Triad Championship. Friday night, we have the Boss Roddy Beatdown hosted by the Dread Pirate Tech Support, Simon Strauss. This again was a group stage to a top cut. The opening matches in the top cut were all Raven's Blood Cemetery matches. The matches in the semifinal round were all last competitor standing matches. And a little bit of a twist in the finals. Normally you would have a finals and then maybe a match for third place. They wanted to have a triad finals because this was going to be for a triad championship shot. What they ended up doing was this. Third and fourth place played off in a submission match. The winner of the third place match got a second chance, got put into the finals of this tournament, a tables, ladders, and steel chain finals, to see if they perhaps could become the next Triad champion. The top four of this tournament ended up being the Grump Danny Thunder using the Unicorn Princess, Chibi using Chibi, John Polverino using Trent, and Chris Pate using X-Royce. The Grump and Chibi win in the semifinals, so they go on to be in the TLC match. John Polverino and Chris Pate square off in a submission match. The winner there ends up being John Polverino, so he gets in to the TLC match. The Grump versus Chibi versus John P. The winner here with Unicorn Princess, the Grump Danny Thunder. The Grump gets to choose the final challenger in the Triad Championship match. He chooses his fellow faction mate, the general manager of the Legendary Fighting Federation, John Calais. So, Saturday, these three men square off for the Triad Championship. The Triad Champion, Matt Barone, using Mr. Pop and Twist. Jeremy Steigerwald, the choice of the Thursday Night Brawl winner, Paul Trejo, used Dizzy Derailed. And John Calais, the choice of the Grump Danny Thunder from Friday night's Boss Roddy Beatdown, used Snake Pit. The winner of this match, at crowd meter 0, I believe, and new LFF Triad Champion, representing the line, Jeremy Steigerwald with Dizzy Derailed. Congratulations to Jeremy Steigerwald for becoming the new LFF Triad Champion. I believe this is his first LFF championship. Finally, as far as championships go, let's talk about the Intergalactic Championship. Going into this weekend, Kid Thunder was the Intergalactic Champion. I don't know what happened, but somehow he ceases being the champion, and the SRG boss, Steve Resk, becomes the Intergalactic Champion. He has a lot of championship defenses over this weekend. I'm just going to read them off in order from what the champion himself gave me. He started out with a match against Big Match Pete. He was playing as Terror Skull. He takes on Big Match Pete, who was using Big Match Pete, and he wins this match. Next up, Steve Resk, using the SRG boss competitor, takes on Brian Waitford Schmidt, using El Lama and Mascarada Senor, and Prince Butters, using TJ Marconi, in a triad match. This match features a special guest referee, the Witch Hunter General, and the Norseman is the enforcer. I don't know what that means, but again, the SRG BOSS Steve Resk defends here too. Next up, and I believe these next three matches happened Saturday during Supershow Summer Brawl. The previous two happened either Friday, Thursday, I don't know when. But the SRG boss takes on Brian Waitford Schmidt, the boss using Mercury, Brian Waitford Schmidt using everybody. The boss successfully defends here. Next up, the boss using Chamomile Tea takes on Prince Butters using Evilise, La Sicaria. The boss wins here. Finally, the boss using Harlequin Queen takes on the Norseman as Bjorn the Norseman, and he again successfully defends. So the boss becomes champion and has what looks like 5 successful defenses, unless the Big Match Pete was to crown himself the champion, in which case it'll only be 4. But those are the results for the Intergalactic Championship. The SRG boss walks out this weekend as the Intergalactic Champion. Congratulations to him. Finally, not a championship match, but had been promoted for a while, a handicap match. Candyman and the Nightmare King taking on Prince Butters in a steel cage match. Prince Butters was using Miss Fury. Mike Nichols, the Nightmare King, was using Robert the Brain Dunn. And Candyman was using Bjorn the Norseman. The winners here, Candyman and the Nightmare King. Congratulations to them winning that handicap match. Those were the matches from Highlander Games June 5th Supershow Summer Brawl. Those were the big stories from this past week. Now let's talk about some other things that happened. We have a result in Faction Wars. Last time I talked about Faction Wars, I reported that the finalists were the Line versus the Higher Class, and I believe essentially what happened in that was everybody played everybody. So each player on each team faced the opponents on the other team. So 6 matches per player. The winners in this ended up being the Higher Class. I don't know what the prizes are going to be for the Higher Class winning. It seems like they're going to get some shots of some championships, but we don't know anything until that's announced. I do want to bring up something that was mentioned when these results were reported on the most recent episode of the Talk of the Universe, and that is people talking about things going on too long. Because I know I've made that criticism in the past. So let me elaborate on that criticism. First off, I'll say this about Faction Wars. Faction Wars was much shorter this year than it was previously. Faction Wars 2, much shorter than the original Faction Wars. But when I talk about something being too long, here's my view on that. There's an expression out there out of sight, out of mind. To me, as the Faction Wars goes on and teams are eliminated, the Faction Wars grows increasingly out of sight for the player base because there's just less participants. And so, as it grows further out of sight, it goes away from people's minds. People forget about it. And I think that makes it just seem forgettable because it's not being talked about. I mean, we literally went from just talking about the most recent news. They announced that the matches were going live, and then they announced the winners. There was nothing in between, nothing to sort of keep you interested, keep you hooked. You know, there was no weekly updates of, here's where the Faction Wars are, here's where it stands. You know, we have so many teams moving on, so many teams eliminated, here's the records. You know, if we were talking about the finals, hey, as of blank time period, we have, these are the results. You know, the line is down, but they're, you know, within striking distance. You have to me, if you want the people to be excited about something, you have to build the excitement. And so when you have these events where there aren't a lot of participants, if you want people to remain invested in them, you have to sort of keep them, you know, interested. You have to keep feeding them something because people just forget. So that's part of the problem with too long. The problem with too long is the longer it goes with no news, no updates, people just forget about it. I think the same thing's happening with the CCC, both in past years and I think in this year. It has been a long gap between the quarterfinal round ending and the semifinal round we're in right now. And without the semifinalists putting out a lot of promos and keeping that in the news, people forget. It also, in my opinion, does not help that the deadline keeps getting pushed further and further back. Because with nothing new happening over a long period of time, people just lose interest. So when I'm criticizing something for being too long, what I'm getting at is if too much time passes with no news, no updates, nothing to build interest or intrigue or anything like that, they just become forgotten events. And that's not good. We don't want people forgetting about Faction Wars. We don't want people forgetting about the CCC. So either more updates, more engagement, or shorten the time. But long stretches of time between things happening is not good for events. And that's all I'm going to say right now on the too long comment, the Faction Wars. Let's go ahead and move on to the next bit of news. The general manager, John Clace, has announced the next number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. It's the most recent CAC winner, Candyman Dan. He actually announced this before Candyman Dan won the CAC, before Supershow Summer Brawl even happened. So Candyman Dan continuing to prove why he deserves the shot at the World Heavyweight Championship next. So he will fight John Polverino at some point for the World Heavyweight Championship. What date and time, you might ask? Well, could be at one of the many upcoming conventions SRG Universe is going to be at. Let's start off with the big one. Next weekend, June 11th through 13th, SRG Universe will be at the Monroeville Convention Center in Monroeville, Pennsylvania for Steel City Con. There will be no tournaments going on at the con, however. Friday night, they've secured play space at a local store. I believe it is called Mr. Nice Guy. So Friday night, there'll be play at Mr. Nice Guy. I want to say 7 p.m. start time. Saturday, they are looking at renting a room, 30 people. It'll be dinner and then I'm assuming play afterwards. Contact Steve Resk, let him know if you're interested in that. They're taking names to fill up the room for Saturday night. I know that I'm planning to be there, so I'll give you all the coverage I can. I should be coming back home Sunday. I do not know if the show will happen Sunday or if it'll end up being pushed to Monday night. Sometimes with travel that happens. I apologize for that. The show may be delayed one day. I'm just going to let everyone listening know right now that while I will try to get the show out Sunday night, do not be surprised if it doesn't come out until Monday night. And I apologize for that. I wish I could do better, but right now, it may be late. Just fair warning. Outside of that, SRG Universe has announced another convention they're going to be at. Eternal Con. Eternal Con, August 7th and August 8th. This is at Hofstra University in New York City. SRG at a convention in their hometown of New York City. Look for that. Since we're talking about conventions, they've also announced, SRG Universe that is, that at Gen Con, there will be 2 major tournaments on Friday, 2 major tournaments on Saturday, and 1 major tournament on Sunday. Based on years past, that is probably a World Heavyweight Championship tournament, an Underworld Championship tournament, a Tag Team tournament, a Tornado Tag tournament, and a Trios tournament. I believe the Trios is usually the single one on Sunday. I could be wrong, but I know that was the format at the previous in-person Gen Con back in 2019. They've also announced a return of the Gauntlet. They had 2 gauntlets in 2019, one at Origins, one at Gen Con. Here's how those gauntlets worked. The general manager, John Calais, picked 3 champions, essentially. If you went into the gauntlet, you had to play each one of these 3 men. The moment you lost a match, you were out. So if you played Champion A, you won, you moved on to Champion B. If you lose a Champion B, you don't play Champion C, you're just out. You had to beat all 3 champions, and then, once you beat all 3, you take on the general manager, John Calais, and if you beat him, you'd win a prize. Only one person so far has won a gauntlet, either at Origins or Gen Con. Dave Marisak, I believe at Gen Con, the director of operations, is the only ever gauntlet winner. So just a little bit of history, if you did not know that, if you're relatively new to the Super Show. The gauntlet's coming back at Gen Con in September. Let's move on from things coming back to things coming out. First, on the most recent episode of Talk of the Universe, they announced that there's going to be boxed product. Could have come in Friday or Saturday, but boxed product was coming to the warehouse. There's a lot of speculation that this boxed product is the New Japan Pro Wrestling box sets, meaning those may be mailed out and these may be arriving at people's homes by this time next week. You may have received them by the end of next week. Very excited if that's true. Don't know if that's true. That's just a speculation based on SRG saying boxed product, no other details. Something we do have details on that is coming out is this. As many of you may know from this program, other programs about SRG Universe, Supershow the Game is the current sponsor of the MLW draft. MLW is Major League Wrestling. They wrestle at various places throughout the country. I believe their next appearance is going to be in Philadelphia. They have a wrestling show online. They have a YouTube channel, MLW, where they show their wrestling shows. They're currently in between wrestling seasons, and as part of this in between time, they're doing an MLW draft. They are drafting wrestlers to the promotion. Supershow the Game is the official game of MLW, and they are sponsoring the draft. As part of this partnership with MLW, 2 new competitor sets have been released. Alex Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu. Those 2 competitor sets are currently available on supershowthegame.com. There is an expiration date. They will only be available for sale as long as the MLW draft is going on. When the draft ends, they will no longer be for sale. That is what SRG Universe has announced. So if you want to pick those up, I would say the sooner the better, because there's an expiration date on their availability. There's also a promo code for a box set. I believe it's MLW New. It's in the header when you go to supershowthegame.com. I've been told it's not all box sets. It's just select ones, so try it out when you go to buy if you're going to use that promo code to pick up a box set. The final thing I'm going to mention when we talk about things coming out is on the next dojo, Tuesday night, June 8th, there are going to be never before released items available through the dojo. These could be alt art cards, alt art finishers, could be some of those new blank competitor cards we've seen around, where it's essentially it's the logo, it's the stats, it's the gimmick over a white field. The idea being you can have an artist draw or sketch anything on that card you want. All of those things are going to be happening on Tuesday night, so if you don't normally watch the dojo, you might want to tune in. If you don't normally play, you might want to build a deck and try to get in Tuesday night. You have to subscribe to the Twitch channel if you want to get in, but if you are or not, go to the Twitch channel, subscribe if not subscribed, type in !play, and then you'll be put into the queue. There's also a Zoom room you have to get into because they pull players from that Zoom room into the Twitch channel to play online. That is all the news for this week. There's one tournament we didn't talk about from this past week. That is a pop-up tournament from last Sunday night. The boss says, wait for it, pop-up event. 20 players. Again, group stages to a top cut. The finalists here were Jim Bias using Shane Hurricane Helms and the SRG boss with Chamomile Tea. The SRG boss takes the pop-up event with Chamomile Tea. Now, as I'm recording this, there is currently a pop-up event going on for Sunday. Let me give you the details on that. It's a 16-player tournament. Group stages to a top cut, $5 entrance fee. Random stipulations in the top 8. Using the dojo wheel. The winner will receive one of those competitor cards that is blank. And there will also be gift cards given out as prizes. That's the tournament going on right now. As I'm recording this, it just started first round. Other tournaments scheduled for this week on supershowthegame.com. There's only one thing scheduled as of right now, and that is the Dread Pirate Proving Ground for the 7th, for Monday night. $5. As I'm recording this, there's still 12 spots left. This is the 6-stop trios that we talked about last week. You got pushed to this week. 8 p.m. Monday night. Sounds like a very interesting format. Outside of that, there is nothing else currently listed on supershowthegame.com for this week coming up. I imagine there will be something Thursday. I told you about Tuesday night. Look for that. Dojo Tuesday night. A lot of new things available for the first time on that dojo. And then I doubt there's going to be anything for the weekend just because it will conflict with Steel City Con. Outside of that, that is going to do it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and good day.